Hello friends, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. On the fallout this week, it's pretty
juicy.
Two managers have lost their jobs with 10 games to go. These clubs feel like they need to make a change. Brendan Rodgers and, of course, Graham Potter. I recorded this before the news of Graham Potter, but in this video, we will dive into the brilliance of Jack Grealish, the brilliance of Roy Hodgson, but very importantly, we will talk about the games that got Brendan Rodgers and Graham Potter sacked. Enjoy! No messing about this week, let's get straight into it. Just trust me, there's loads of amazing content and insight for you here in this one, so stick around. Man City 4, Liverpool 1. 2.98 XG to 0.32 for Liverpool. Let's talk about Jack Grealish and how brilliant he was, but first of all, let's talk about how Man City beat this Liverpool side so convincingly. And I think I got this wrong, and I think Klopp got this wrong as well, because I think we both shot ourselves in the foot by suggesting that a sort of copy and paste approach, although Firmino was swapped in for Gakpo, would have worked in terms of that victory earlier in the season, the 1-0 victory. Jota started this game, but actually, in hindsight, I think, and it's easy to say this, and let me know, Liverpool fans, if you agree or disagree, Nunez has got to start. You know, he has found his feet now, and for a team that wasn't going to have much of the ball and wanted to be devastating in the counter-attack, I think in the first game of the season, in the second half in particular, and with some of the mistakes that Man City made, it sort of played into Liverpool's hands in terms of allowing Salah to be a bit more central and to look to him. But in this game with Jota playing, he wasn't as devastating as someone like Nunez could be. And Liverpool made 2 counter-attacks during the whole 90, and produced 2 shots from these attacks. So I feel like the best way to approach it, actually, the learning is here that you need Nunez on the field, especially in a game where you're going to counter-attack, especially given the partnership that he's got with Mohamed Salah in counter-attacking scenarios. I think we saw this in the game against Everton and how effective it can be. And again, it's something that I completely understand why Klopp went with the intelligence of someone like Jota. But in hindsight, it didn't work. Now, maybe Nunez wouldn't have worked either, but I think actually, if you've got someone that dangerous in terms of speed, ability to break down that side, I think maybe he would have been a better shout. Defensively, would have hurt you? I mean, they got hurt anyway. The second point for Liverpool, which is also a positive for Man City, is that the game was very much won and lost in midfield. The average positions are a good insight into how Liverpool didn't stand a chance of controlling the game, which I think they knew. And with Stones stepping inside to form a double pivot, it prevented that pathway into Cody Gakpo. But City did really well to isolate him to only 31 touches, with most of them coming in his own half. He was also forced at times to the left channel, which meant that any interplay with Salah was just out of the question because he was too far away from him. Again, I think I would have gone for Firmino in this game. So maybe another mistake from Klopp when it comes to the starting lineup. But that Liverpool overall were completely overrun. And it was just a bit too much, especially with Man City playing at home. And let's get on to Man City, because we have to talk about Jack Grealish. He was instrumental in this win, and his positioning alongside his output was one of the key aspects of Man City overcoming Liverpool, and more specifically, giving Trent an afternoon to forget. Have a look at this heat map. It shows a lot to us about the 2 different dimensions of Jack Grealish's role for Man City. When he receives the ball in the opening exchanges of a move, he tends to sort of hug the byline, which provides width for the team. This is important because when Man City play with a back 3 and no wing backs, it makes the pitch as big as possible, which is crucial and has been a problem for them. It also forced Trent to engage higher up the pitch, and thus it was sort of breaking that flat back 4 of Liverpool. In the second stage of play, Grealish tended to cut inside. This was a huge problem for Liverpool because they weren't sure who was picking him up, and it allowed him a lot of space in the final third. Grealish took a total of 3 shots, with all of them coming from inside the box, and that was the byproduct of him being able to ghost into those half spaces untracked. These 2 screenshots show how intelligent Grealish's movement was and how he pretty much bamboozled Trent over and over again. His understanding with Alvarez and KDB just added to this, and it made him very, very hard to pick up. And despite Trent arguably making mistakes in ball watching and a lack of spatial awareness, Jack Grealish was absolutely astounding in this game. He is really finding his groove. Another defeat for Chelsea, and the pressure piles back on. Graham Potter is probably only surviving because Chelsea are still in the Champions League at this point. 2.16 XG to 0.92. There are so many things from this game that we can pick apart and criticise Chelsea for, and that's what we're going to do, because at both ends there were big problems for Chelsea, and it meant that they not only caused their own problems, but they also couldn't find the answers to atone for those mistakes. Let's start off with the forwards. and what they did wrong. Because I feel like the midfield pairing of Kovacic and Enzo did do enough to get the forwards into good positions and give them the best possible opportunities to score. Between them, they made 7 key passes, and Kovacic also created a great chance for Mudryk. I think that Kovacic, Enzo and Chilwell, to an extent, are the only ones that come away from this game not looking like... clowns is harsh, but not looking like the players that they really should be with a squad of this quality. What Aston Villa did well to prevent the Chelsea forwards from having any joy was limiting how many opportunities there was for Chelsea sort of to play the ball in behind. We've seen this season that Chelsea struggle against the low block, and often they sort of revert to passing the ball to feet in a repetitive fashion. And we've also seen that Chelsea can be pretty good when they do play the ball in behind. You know, with Enzo Fernandez, with Kovacic, you've got those players with that quality to see the pass and utilise the pace of their forwards. But when they were given this opportunity to do this, they massively lacked quality when it mattered, which has been the big talking point and what could easily lose Graham Potter his job. This screenshot shows one of a few times where Chelsea were able to do this. The next screenshot is representative of how Chelsea were on the day. Creating a total of 2.1 XG, 1.6 XG, and not scoring can often seem like a team that were unlucky. But I think this screenshot is an example of how poor the finishing was and how out of sync, I think that's a good phrase to use when it comes to Chelsea, that in particular Mudryk is at the moment. You know, he's come for a lot of money, a lot of hype. And I've got a problem with a few things here. Now, firstly, Mudryk panics and takes a shot early. He also hasn't got any idea as to where Emi Martinez is, and he needed to get his head up. Finally, the body language and the way that he sets himself for the shot makes it so readable for Martinez, who is obviously a quality goalkeeper as well. And this is the level that you're at. You've got to take your chances when you get them. And with an open foot and the ball too close to his feet, it means that there is never going to be any real power behind the shot, and it also telegraphs where it's going to be going, to that bottom right-hand corner. Very wasteful, and wasteful is the perfect term for how Chelsea were against Villa. 3 big chances, 27 shots, 8 on target, and 19 shots from inside the box. That is criminal from Chelsea and their forwards. You can hammer them for getting done down the other end because the defence wasn't much better, but you've got to be scoring goals with that amount of quality on the pitch. And no matter who you are in the Premier League, the opposition is always going to have at least one chance to score, especially with the league as competitive as it is this year. And if you're wasteful, it's a certainty that you're going to be punished. You know, at best, they obviously would have got a draw from this game because they didn't score a goal. And then when you gift opponents chances like this, you make it even easier for them. I really want to know what Cucurella was thinking for this first one. It's absolutely woeful defending. And firstly, why is Potter forcing him into the side as a left-sided centre-back? I understand the ball progression and all that, but Potter played Reece James at right-sided centre-back too, and that's surely overkill. This screenshot, again, it solidifies the fact that Cucurella isn't a natural defender, in my opinion, but also shows that lack of leadership from Koulibaly, and furthermore, the absence of any kind of communication between the two. This has to be a Koulibaly ball every single bloody time. Cucurella is in no position to challenge. He just needs to follow his man. And it ends up in a flick on for Watkins to score what is the football equivalent of a slam dunk in lobbing Kepa cheekily. And I'd imagine for Chelsea fans, the most infuriating thing is that Badiashile is right there. And he's not in the Champions League squad. I don't get it. With Chelsea lacking goals despite creating chances, I want to ask what feels like the most important statement here. Chelsea need a striker, or Potter is out of his depth. Which one is the most pertinent question for you right now? Let me know in the comments down below. For Villa, I think the crux of it was that Emery had the better tactics to Potter and showed the difference between a coach with a fixed plan and one without it. Asking the Villa centre-backs of Mings and Konsa to sort of stay that little bit deep was a very smart move by Emery in making sure that passes in behind were limited. This meant that Chelsea were forced to throw bodies forward, and we can see this from Chelsea's average positions. This forced Chelsea to commit, and it made it so easy in transition, thus playing into Ollie Watkins' strengths. And with little to no defensive cohesion from Chelsea, it gave Ollie Watkins the freedom to roam around unmarked, which saw him pick up the ball in different positions and to be effective in different areas of the pitch. It was crazy from Chelsea because Villa's danger man, Watkins, now has 8 goal contributions in his last 9 matches and a total of 15 goal contributions this season. Villa did a job on him. The sweet, sweet Gunners keep marching on. 4-1 victory against Leeds United. 3.78 XG to 0.72 for Leeds. And as I say, those sweet, sweet Gunners are just no bounds. Look, when I first saw the team, I think we're all a bit shocked Saka wasn't starting, especially when you consider that Saka started 64 out of Arsenal's last 67 league matches over this season and the last season. I think we all would have been fearful because Saka's profile alongside his partnership with Odegaard and White has been one of the most important aspects of Arsenal's tactics this season. And I think he's probably Arsenal's most important player. But this team just continue to march on. Is it a great Leeds United team that they're playing against? No. Are you at home and is it a banker? Yeah. But you still got to go and do it. And I think the air in the Arsenal stadium would have been a touch nervous after that strong performance from Man City. And that's a big thing, I think, to remember here. On ESPN, Lawrence McKenna said this, and I thought it was a genius point, is that as big a part of anything, such a huge ingredient of this is when you're playing and who goes first, because that adds a massive dollop of pressure on the other team. Lawrence has a channel, by the way, go check it out. And this Arsenal team seemed to be too good to be fazed by anything, it seems. You'd had Gabriel Jesus back, Trossard in the form of his life. What a signing that has been. Martinelli and Saka both fit. Arsenal may have the best forward line in the league right now, especially when it comes to confidence and fluency. Gabriel Jesus scored 2 against Leeds, and I want to talk about how his role elevates this Arsenal team and takes them even closer to the title. And why Trossard, actually, importantly, has such a crucial role in Gabriel Jesus' role. So from Gabriel Jesus' heat map, we can see that he hugs the left in build-up and isn't really what we expect from your normal number 9, certainly not what you saw from Nketiah. He had 52 touches in the 90 minutes, which is about 20 to 30 more than what we would expect from a classic number 9. For example, Haaland is only averaging 24 per 90, and he, of course, plays in a team that dominates the ball. But this just makes Arsenal's attack more fluid and dynamic. This is important because all the Arsenal players have a great understanding of him, and it doesn't take anything away in terms of having a focal point. And this is where Trossard over Saka comes in, because Saka never really finds himself in the central areas of the penalty area, and he often can be seen at the back post in these situations. But Trossard's movement is different in the sense that he'll take up the striker position sometimes if it's vacant, and that meant that the Leeds defenders struggled to pick him up when he did this. Arsenal, in a sense, operated with sort of 2 false nines at times, and the movement was just way too much for Leeds, who crumbled when it happened. Trossard's heat map shows how he didn't have a fixed position as such and was allowed to float around. He was pretty much a round-deuter and was allowed to manipulate spaces around the pitch and just showcase that football IQ that is so evident in his game. With Trossard totaling 55 touches, creating 2 big chances and putting up 3 key passes. This will leave Arteta a bit torn, actually, I think, as he picks his team next week against Liverpool. But on the other hand, it gives Arsenal a tactical complexity whilst also making them unpredictable with players that are playing and in form with so many options. They're like a bit of a Rubik's Cube at this point. For Leeds, I don't really get what they were trying to do with the starting 11. A midfield 3 of Jack Harrison, Rocker and Christensen seemed really strange to me, especially when you have Weston McKennie on the bench. I mean, maybe he wasn't totally fit. I get that Christensen scored, but he's a right back, and playing in midfield against Arsenal just felt more irrational than bold. And having said that, McKennie probably would have gotten himself sent off if he had started, because he's that kind of player. I think the midfielder now has 4 yellow cards in 6 starts, and Leeds may want to save him for their matches against Forest and Palace, and that might have been the reason behind it. Speaking of Palace, 3 cheers for our editor Finn, who is a Palace fan and got a victory. He previously said, and I better leave this in, Finn, that Mateta would be better as a centre-back than a forward. Well, he got himself a victory.
I'm sorry! I'm sorry!
Boom. So maybe just a little bit less, okay? A little bit less talking, a little more cutty-wutting, you know? Speaking of wutting, Roy only deals in... No. Not doing that to Roy. Crystal Palace 2, Leicester City 1, 2.42 to 0.22. Is this the bounciest new manager bounce of the season? The confidence and exuberance that Palace showed in this game was phenomenal to see. At half-time, they had already taken a total of 20 shots and simultaneously limited Leicester to none. To put it into context, and how crazy an uplift this is, Palace have only been averaging 10.6 shots per 90 this season. And against Leicester, they had taken 10 shots by the 19th minute. Yeah, that's the Roy Hodgson effect. I think what Roy Hodgson did really well was, I think, probably instilling some belief and security and safety. Old Grandad Roy there to just go, look, just do your best. It was nice. and just maybe get them to get on with it a little bit. It's not like Everton, for example, where you can kind of question the quality of the players. At Palace, they already have amazing talents, and it was just a matter of reinforcing the belief into them and giving a clearer structure of how to play. I really like the balance of the side and how the players interacted with each other in the system that Hodgson put forward. With Elise taking a wider position on the flank, it allowed him space to create and open the pitch up for himself with his right foot. This allowed Eze to move into the half spaces between Elise and Edouard. And giving Eze that freedom of expression, it worked so well in that regard as he linked the play well, but also gave him a lot of space in important positions around the box. And that's where Eze is at his best. Eze made 3 key passes, and so did Elise. They worked absolutely brilliantly together, which is something that we haven't been able to say for a long time. They were kind of all on each other's toes under Patrick Vieira. On the other side, having Jeff Schlupp in an advanced role meant that Zaha wasn't isolated, and it just looked like they had a clear idea, whereas under Vieira, the plan just didn't look as clear, didn't feel as balanced as well. I think the worry for Palace is that Zaha did go off injured at half-time, and we're waiting to see what the extent of that injury is. Of course, we have to talk about Leicester. They were awful throughout, and despite taking the lead, they really didn't deserve to win the match in any capacity. And the Leicester board also thought this, as they have just sacked Brendan Rodgers, stating that the next 10 games are very important and that they need poise to get through them. So what do? Sack the manager. I've got to be honest, I think if they don't lose this game, I think he's still in the job. And so I think the problem is, they need the bounce. They do. And I think they probably think Brendan Rodgers is a good manager. And I think they probably would have liked to have trusted him into next season and just write this one off. But it's getting way too close now. And there's too many good teams. And I think the biggest problem is they think they're too good to go down. And I think Brendan Rodgers kind of exudes that as well. And it's good to have poise and be calm. And I don't think poise is the word. I think they need a rocket, and they need one fast. It's going to be interesting to see who comes in to do that. Is it organisation they need? Do they need more motivation? Guys, let me know in the comments down below. What kind of manager are you after? Because this is a bit of a firefighting mission for them. But then I was wondering what they would be doing next year in terms of their transfers, because there needs to be a few changes there as well. So Rafa Benitez is the favourite to replace Rodgers at 10-3. Do you think that would work? I think it could. Especially with someone like Maddison. Benitez does like a 10 and often gets the best out of them, unless, of course, his name is James Rodriguez. And I think he'd provide more defensive acumen for them and make them harder to beat, because there hasn't been a point this season where Leicester have looked considerably solid at the back and resolute, apart from that little patch where they sort of bounced back after that initial wobble at the start of the season. It's getting scary for Leicester now, and they need to make a change quickly. And they've got some big games coming up. Unbelievable game. Brighton against Brentford in the well-run club derby. 4.47 XG for Brighton, 1.60 for Brentford, who generally win their XG battles, but not actually generally against Brighton. The football played in this game was outstanding, and after Arsenal and Man City, it was probably the finest quality of football played this weekend from both teams. This game for me further solidified the belief that Brighton and Brentford are the real deal, and that neither of them should be seen as underdogs in games anymore. I do think that Brentford are going to start to move towards not the Brentford model, but sort of open up. They've got a lot of technical players that don't always start for them, and I think they're going to move towards that. That's the sort of next stage for them. But at this moment, they concentrate on being a bit more solid, and obviously got a couple of goals from set pieces. Let's start with Brentford, because I thought that they were slightly uncharacteristic in a sense, if we are being really harsh. The only reason I'm saying this is because they let a lead slip 3 times, and that just isn't something that you would expect. That said, I don't think that's a huge worry going forward, because Brighton are excellent, but it may feel like 2 drop points, especially with the sort of avoidable nature of the equaliser. I want to talk about Ivan Toney. We massively appreciate him, of course. And I still think he's underrated because he plays for Brentford. His goal against Brighton took him up to 17 league goals for the season. He's averaging a goal every 137 minutes in the Premier League. This puts him 3rd in the top scorers chart, and I don't think many have noticed just how prolific he's been so far. If he didn't have those allegations, I think, over his head, I think he goes to a Man United or a Chelsea. And I think regardless, they may still do that. Another question for Brentford fans and all fans, how much would you pay for him? Because he's knocking on the door of 25 goals this season. And so to go to, say, a Man United or a Chelsea, that's a game changer right there. Brighton were their brilliant selves again. The only thing that they wouldn't have liked was conceding 3, despite Brentford only having 5 shots on target. But that's Brentford's whole MO, so it's not as bad as it looks on the surface. I think we're all just really enjoying watching Brighton develop as a team under De Zerbi, and they keep adding new tricks to their Arsenal. Not Arsenal, the football team, Arsenal, like weaponry. That's what I meant there. Shouldn't have said Arsenal, really. Anyway, Matoma's goal, for example, was assisted by the goalkeeper, Jason Steele, which, again, it kind of looks like a long hoof, but it's just very, very clever stuff. It's not something that we would have expected from Brighton, but it just shows that they're sort of thinking, keeping an eye, having an understanding, know what to do, know how to sort of understand the pattern of the pitch, and they're able to kind of try things. It's a very well-drilled, smart, positive team, and they're not rooted to one style of play either, because they've got an ability to beat a team that tries to press them. That's kind of what they want, but they also have showed now that they can bypass the midfield as well as breaking low blocks. We've said it before, but the mentality of Brighton's side is Champions League mentality, in my opinion. McAllister scored a 90th minute equaliser and didn't even celebrate. Instead, he picked up the ball and took it to the halfway line. I think it shows the belief of the team and the fact that they just don't see themselves as underdogs in any game. They play like it in their chance creation, and they act like it in their body language. They've got a very tough run of games, as I spoke about in my video where I ranked every team's fixtures and put forward the key 3 or 4 for all of them. Go check that out when you get a chance. Brighton have got a chance. They have got a chance, but obviously they're going to have to beat some of these big sides around them. Can they do it? Let me know in the comments. Big old win for the Bournemouth. 2-1 against Fulham, 2.65 to 0.84 for Fulham. Are Fulham on the beach already? I did wonder if they might do that. I think they may be beach ready, as I've coined. Could Bournemouth do it? That's the question here. Bournemouth aren't done yet. They're still fighting for something, and all the other teams have got to go to other teams and get something, and I would love it if Bournemouth stayed up. They sit in 16th in the Premier League. Granted, they're only 1 point above safety, but they're keeping pace with the pack when no one thought that they would. They were energetic, physical, and most importantly, they didn't let their heads drop after going that goal down. And as a team, they play to each other's strengths, and they have a clear identity about what they're about right now. They look dangerous as well. They only had 43% possession, but they were very purposeful when they attacked. They always are, and that was thanks to one person in particular. We've spoken about him a couple of times on the Fallout, but again, his runs are really effective, annoying for the opposition, and he's just got a clever way about him. Philip Billing. Billing had more or less a free role against Fulham, with Joe Rothwell and Jefferson Lerma in supporting roles behind him and giving him the platform to be more advanced. Billing's technical ability and spatial awareness is really undervalued outside of Bournemouth, in my opinion. And due to him being big and strong, enough to turn me on, it also gives Bournemouth the ability to use him as a target in transitions. And that's why you can see from his heat map that it shows him in wide areas. The good thing about this is that it allows Solanke to play as an advanced forward and target the channels, and this screenshot demonstrates the value in this. Here Billing flicks it to Ouattara, who gets a shot away. Billing is the ultimate handful in a sense. He won 9 out of his 10 ground duels against Fulham, and they didn't have an answer for his runs. Lastly, having Tavernier back is so huge for Bournemouth. His goal was brilliant, wasn't it? The celebration was class as well. And now him and Ouattara on the flanks, they now have very good counter-attacking players that suit their style. For Fulham, I think it's time to throw the question out there that are they the first team on the beach? As I said, survival was definitely the goal for them, and with them sitting comfortably in 10th, is it possible that they're going to take their foot off the pedal? I think they probably will. Or was it largely down to Mitrovic not being in the side? Bottom line is, at the end of the day, you are still above Chelsea. So, Fulham fans, are you even bothered at this stage? It's been an unbelievable season up to now.
It's my brother. I didn't diss your brother.
It's not my problem that I'm alpha male.
You better make his argument because I'm coming with sledgehammer.
Could be a water boy, man.
Chris, getting competitive. Here we go.